Welcome to the Project Management Prepcast, the key to PMP exam success. Here's your instructor, Cornelius Fichtner.
Hello and welcome back to the Project Management Prepcast, the most agile method of managing your personal PMP exam preparation certification project. I'm your instructor, Cornelius Fichtner. Yes, in this lesson we're going to provide you with an overview of agile project management, and right away you may be thinking to yourself, but wait a minute, I thought this was a PMP exam preparation course and not one for the PMI ACP exam. Well, agile project management has become mainstream, and PMI's PMBOK Guide 5th edition references certain commonly accepted agile principles that they feel are important even when you're working on projects and you're using traditional or waterfall project management approaches. So in this lesson, we're going to focus on reviewing the history of agile project management, describing the main characteristics of agile project management, discussing the most popular and major agile project management methods, and providing you with a list of concepts and key terms that you must include in your PMP exam preparation project plan. Agile project management is a framework of methods that allows today's project managers to maximize project communications and minimize project waste in order to afford the customer a competitive advantage. And so at this point, I also need to mention that since this is the first of our Agile lessons here on the Project Management Prepcast, it is not our intention to teach you Agile in full detail and discuss every intricacy. We will only focus on the basics of Agile and give you a general understanding, because that is what you may encounter on the PMP exam. We do not want to make you an Agile specialist, just someone who can figure out the correct answer when it comes to Agile questions on the PMP exam. And with that out of the way, are you ready to get Agile? Let's do it. Agile is a form of project management and product development based on a process of incremental product deliverables and iterative project improvements. Agile approaches have become increasingly popular for organizations that need to deal with rapidly changing customer and market requirements. Although many different Agile methods became popular during the 1990s, a group of 17 software developers who had been practicing these varied Agile methods met in February of 2001 in Snowbird in Utah to determine the commonalities between these different methods. The result was the Agile Manifesto, which presented these common organizing principles in a single document, which to this day still offers valuable insight to help guide the successful execution of Agile projects. One aspect of the Agile Manifesto that stands out is that it is written at a very high level. This is important because all of the methods that make up the manifesto's common organizing principles state what to do, but not dictate specifically how to implement these principles. This is why Agile is considered a philosophy, just like waterfall or traditional project management. They are not methods. It is left up to the individual project team to determine how to manage the project and develop the product, and what specific method of Agile will actually fit the specific project needs the best. There are many Agile methods such as Scrum, Lean, Extreme Programming, and so on. Which method you choose is dependent on your organization, the project team, and the specific type of project you are running. We have a separate lesson that looks at the Agile Manifesto in detail. However, right now we want to at least look at it from a high level. You need this as a basic understanding for the rest of this lesson here. The first 3 paragraphs of the Agile Manifesto state an overview of the document's purpose, and the first paragraph here can be considered the mission of the Agile Manifesto, since it describes what the creators have done, are helping others to do, and they value certain aspects of what they are doing. It reads, "We are uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others do it. Through this work, we have come to value individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and responding to change over following a plan." This second paragraph here, with its 4 lines, states the Agile Manifesto values that the original drafters of the document considered to be of the highest importance to their projects. And then the last paragraph is describing the fact that although the second half of each of these value statements in the second paragraph here holds value to the drafters of the manifesto, the first half, the ones we have highlighted in blue, are more highly valued. And it reads, that is, while there is value in the items on the right, we value items on the left more. So if we look at the first of the 4 values, individuals and interactions are valued more than processes and tools. The values we discussed represent the original Agile Manifesto, but the drafters of the document also decided that a supporting document was necessary to clarify the 4 values with 12 principles. Here they are: customer satisfaction, welcomed changes, frequent delivery, co-located teams, motivated individuals, face-to-face contact, working software, constant pace, continuous attention, simplicity, self-organization, and regular reflection. So these are the 12 principles behind the Agile Manifesto. And don't worry, we'll go much more in detail in these as well as our 4 values in the lesson on the Agile Manifesto. The supporting document that contains these 12 principles is called, of course, the principles behind the Agile Manifesto. And from this high-level overview of where Agile came from, we go straight back to the PMBOK guide, because some Agile project management terms have been added to the latest edition of the PMBOK guide, and you may encounter these in practice tests or the actual PMP exam. They are acceptance criteria, adaptive life cycle, agile approach, apportioned effort, backlog, business value, collaboration, co-location, discrete effort, ground rules, incremental life cycle, iterative life cycle, methodology, and progressive elaboration. As a means of studying these, I suggest that you create your own flashcards for each of these terms to understand them thoroughly. Term goes on one side, definition goes on the other side. But wait, that's not all of them. There are more. We also have the process improvement model and the process improvement plan, retrospective reviews, rolling wave planning, storyboarding, tailoring, value engineering, user stories, velocity, virtual project teams, virtual meetings, the voice of the customer, as well as the war room. Again, these are terms associated with Agile that you can find in the PMBOK guide. Some of these, like tailoring or the process improvement plan, have been used in traditional project management for quite some time, but velocity and user stories, to pick just 2 examples, are terms that emerged from Agile and are now slowly making their way into traditional or hybrid project management approaches as well. Agile project management and product development methods are becoming increasingly more popular today. However, in the end, the adoption of Agile principles and practices is based on the type of organization that is executing the project, as well as the type of the product that is being developed by your project team. Many corporations have seen the value of adopting Agile principles, not only in project management, but also as a management philosophy in general. On the other hand, other organizations have been less receptive to Agile, and still others have tried and been disappointed with the results. Agile emphasizes on self-organizing teams and decentralized decision-making, and this can be problematic for matrix organization with a hierarchical management process and reporting structures. And functional managers often struggle with Agile's preference for face-to-face communication and simplicity in documenting project plans and project progress. Based on some of your own project management experiences, it may be easy for you to see why the culture of some traditional companies is opposed to many of the elements that make up a successful Agile project. However, those organizations that embrace and effectively manage constantly changing requirements from both customer and market fluctuations will see the benefit of implementing Agile principles in terms of their competitive advantage. Now that you know a little bit about the history of Agile project management, let's look at some of its characteristics. First of all, Agile is adaptive rather than predictive. Agile is based on performing some initial planning up front, but only spending the time and effort to plan and estimate project activities relative to whether they will be executed in the near horizon or the far horizon. Second, Agile is people-oriented rather than process-oriented. Agile places emphasis on the individual development of the project team members first, in order to make them as efficient and as productive as possible. Process is important, but it is secondary to the team. Third, Agile is focused on the skill of the development team. Taking the concept of team member development a bit further, Agile team members are encouraged to become cross-functional and perform tasks outside of their normal job descriptions. And by the way, development team doesn't mean that we're talking about software development. Every single member on an Agile team is called a developer, no matter what their role is. Fourth, Agile includes a willingness to embrace change. This is a fundamental tenet of Agile and refers to the fact that change is actually embraced. There is no such thing as scope creep in Agile. Change management is handled completely and utterly different. And lastly, Agile is centered around small iterations. Providing a product increment to the customer every 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes referred to as a potentially shippable product, helps to give Agile project customers a competitive advantage with an improved chance to being first to the market. We now move our attention to the Agile processes that we recommend you follow when implementing Agile on your own projects. There is normally a planning strategy meeting that is held to kick off the project, and it is driven by a product vision associated with a strategic business need or goal. This vision is then typically framed in the context of a strategy and associated goals and objectives, and many times also includes high-level project requirements. Something specific to Agile are iterations, which are short, fixed-length subsets of product releases and represents the executing portion of your project. The first iteration event type is the iteration planning, which is held for project team members to plan and agree upon project requirements that they are confident that they can complete during the specific iteration that is about to begin, so during the next couple of weeks or so. After the iteration planning has been performed, at the beginning of each iteration, the project team concentrates on actually executing the iteration. This is where the Agile project team gets to work to perform the activities that are outlined to be completed for the current iteration. At the end of each iteration on Agile, the product functionality that has been developed is demonstrated to all the interested parties and, of course, in particular, to the customer. The last event in each iteration of an Agile project is the iteration process review, where the Agile project team members determine what went right in the current iteration so they can repeat it in the next one, and what went wrong so they can fix it in the next iteration. And then, pardon the hair washing analogy here, but really each iteration that you perform on an Agile project does involve planning, work execution, product review, and process review until the last iteration of the project lifecycle. These truly are processes that need to be both rinsed and repeated throughout the entire Agile project lifecycle. Alright, so much for the high-level overview of our 6 process steps. Let's now look at each of these 6 from plan projects all the way down to rinse and repeat a little bit more in detail here. So, the Agile development cycle begins with the Agile project team and customers establishing a clear vision of what the product should be when the project is completed. This vision is expressed in a collection of customer requirements called features or user stories, which are high-level descriptions representing user requirements. These user stories are specifically worded to reflect the customer's intended use and keep the product focused on meeting customer needs rather than meeting specific technical specifications. These user stories are documented in the product backlog, which is a dynamic documented list of user stories that represent the most important customer requirements at any specific point during your Agile project. And the good news is, if the customer wants to make a change, you just write up a new user story, add it to the product backlog, put it into the appropriate priority, and your change management is complete. So much for our first step here, plan project. At the beginning of all iterations on the project team meets to plan the current iteration. This consists of 3 separate and distinct activities. First of all, a team member, sometimes referred to as the product owner, reads the user stories that have been prioritized by the customer to be included in the current iteration. The team members then estimate the amount of effort that they believe each user story will require, and eventually they reach a consensus of this work effort. And lastly, the product owner then receives a commitment from the team members that they agree with the amount of work that has been added to the iteration and that they can execute and deliver this by the end of the iteration. At the end of this planning, we have selected and estimated all the user stories or features that the team is confident to be working on and finishing during the execution of the iteration. And now the project team gets to work, takes responsibility for and actually performs the work that they agreed would be completed by the end of the iteration. The project team members normally also attend a daily team meeting, which is referred to as a daily stand-up meeting, to help keep them focused, where each team member answers 3 questions. What did I accomplish since our last meeting? And here the individual states the specific tasks that they completed since the last meeting. What will I be working on today? The individual here states the specific tasks that they will be working on for the rest of the day, to be continuing the work or maybe starting on another task altogether. And lastly, what roadblocks are impeding my progress? The individual here will state any issues that are preventing them from completing their work, with the intention that as soon as this meeting is over, everybody will try and help this team member to remove that roadblock so that work can move forward uninhibited. At the end of each iteration, the project team will meet with the product owner, customers, and other stakeholders to demonstrate the product they created during the iteration. Often this is simply a product increment, which is a component of the overall final product that is delivered at the end of your project. These iteration reviews are short meetings where the project team simply presents the results of the work that they performed during the iteration in terms of demonstrating the product or the product increment functionality. It is important that the team presents complete working products and not prototypes or documentation describing how the product would or should work to customers and stakeholders for review and analysis. Stakeholders and customers ask questions about the product and provide feedback, which the team then translates into new user stories that may be added to the product backlog for inclusion in future iterations. And then there is also the iteration review meeting at the end of each iteration. This is held by the Agile project team internally to assess how the iteration that has just been completed has worked in terms of the team's interactions, as well as in terms of the project's processes that were implemented during the iteration. This is often referred to as an iteration retrospective, and these important iteration meetings allow your Agile project team to revise development processes and team interactions before starting the next iteration by having the project team members answer the following 3 questions. First of all, what went well with the iteration? Discuss the positive activities and events that occurred during the iteration so that the team can take note of these and continue to perform these positive activities in future iterations. Second, quite obviously, what did not go well with the iteration? Here we discuss the negative activities and events that occurred during the iteration and try to determine the cause of these. And lastly, how can we improve what did not go well with the iteration? Identify areas that need improvement as a result of discussing the negative activities and events that occurred during the current iteration. It is important to create specific plans of action so that they can then be implemented right away in the iteration that's probably going to start tomorrow. Once again, please do pardon the rinse and repeat analogy here in this particular cycle, but really, each iteration that you perform on an Agile project does involve all the different iteration meetings that we have just discussed. Although the Agile stages have been presented here in more or less a linear form, they are not really all that linear. It is important to note that there is significant overlap and there are several feedback loops among these stages. The actual Agile process is much more cyclical and iterative than it is linear. So, now that you know the basic process that is most often followed when implementing Agile on your project, here is a quick recap of the process. On a typical Agile project, you will want, in this specific order, first of all, to do Agile project planning, then Agile iteration planning, followed by the Agile iteration work execution, and once the work is executed at the end of the iteration, you will do an Agile iteration product review and an Agile iteration process review, also known as the retrospective. And remember, these truly are processes that need to be both rinsed and repeated throughout the entire Agile project lifecycle to help ensure project success. But since Agile project management and product development is considered a philosophy or framework, everything that we have discussed so far in this lesson was intended to give you and your project team members some guidelines on what to do on your Agile projects to be successful. Now let's discuss the different methods that help you determine how your individual project teams can manage your projects and develop your projects using Agile. There are many Agile methods, but the following 8 methods here represent the majority of ways that today's organizations implement Agile on their projects, and they include Scrum, Extreme Programming or XP, the Dynamic Systems Development Method or DSDM, of which the latest is DSDM a turn. We also have Feature-Driven Development, FDD. We have Adaptive Software Development, ASD. Then we have Lean Software Development with the acronym LSD, which is of course not the hallucinogenic drug from the 1960s. We also have Kanban, a more structured and focused form of lean software development. And finally, we also have Crystal. Once again, this is not a drug, but actually a family of Agile methods. Let's look at these a little bit more in detail. Our first Agile method is Scrum, and Scrum is an iterative and incremental Agile software development method for managing software projects and products, where a development team works as a unit to reach a common goal, enables the creation of self-organizing teams by encouraging co-location of all team members, embraces the fact that customers can and will change their minds about what they want and need, and it adopts an empirical approach, accepting that the problem cannot be fully understood or defined, focusing instead on maximizing the team's ability to quickly deliver and respond to emerging requirements. And second, we have XP or Extreme Programming. This is a software development method intended to improve software quality and responsiveness to changing customer requirements, which advocates frequent releases in short development cycle. This is developer-centric and takes its name from the idea that the beneficial elements of traditional software engineering practices are taken to the extreme levels. But don't worry, they don't actually develop underwater, as you see in this image here. Our next Agile method is DSDM, which stands for Dynamic Systems Development Method, and it is an Agile project delivery method that was initially used for software development, which evolved into a generic approach to project management and solution delivery. It is an iterative and incremental approach, and it is very prevalent on projects implemented in Europe. DSDM a turn is the most recent version, and yes, it is actually named after the adaptive nature of the species of bird known as the Arctic tern. Please watch the Agile Prepcast for a comprehensive overview of this popular Agile method and all of the Agile methods actually that we review in this lesson here. And then we also have feature-driven development, or FDD. This is an iterative and incremental software development process which blends a number of industry-recognized best practices into a cohesive whole whose practices are all driven from a client-valued functionality or feature perspective, and whose main purpose is to deliver tangible, working software repeatedly in a timely manner. Then we have ASD and LSD. ASD stands for Adaptive Software Development, and it is a software development process that grew out of Rapid Application Development, RAD. It embodies the principle that continuous adaptation of current processes is normal. It replaces the traditional or waterfall cycle with a repeating series of speculate, collaborate, and learn cycles, and allows for continuous learning and adaptation to the emergent state of the project. And then Lean Software Development, or LSD, a software development method dedicated to reducing errors and wasted time while maximizing education and efficiency, whose principles were originally used in IT and manufacturing, and which has since been adopted by the programming community. The guiding philosophy of lean software development is a primary commitment to the value being created for the end user while intelligently conserving project resources. And then there is Kanban, which literally means signboard or billboard in Japanese. It is a scheduling system for lean and just-in-time production to control the logistical chain from a production point of view. It is used to improve and maintain a high level of production and has become an effective tool in support of running a production system as a whole, as well as an excellent way for promoting process improvement. And finally, we have Crystal. Crystal is a family of agile software development methods which focuses primarily on people and the interactions among them while they work. Which Crystal color or method to implement on a project is based on both the size of the project team as well as the criticality of the project. This is currently the least implemented agile method. So, although we've provided you with an overview of Agile and the specific benefits of using Agile principles and implementing different Agile methods on real-life projects, most organizations do not use a pure Agile approach. Many times, especially on pilot Agile projects, when organizations are implementing Agile practices and principles for the first time, organizations want to hold on to some of the traditional or waterfall-based project environment, but embrace some agile practices as well. This is really what most organizations are doing today. They actually adopt a hybrid of processes and practices, not only taken from traditional or waterfall project management and product development processes, but also with a combination of different agile methods. This is called tailoring, since each organization will need to review the current methods of project management and product development available to them, and then use the best of each to tailor their specific approach to meet a specific project need. Let's review. In this lesson, you have learned Agile project management is a framework of methods that allows today's project managers to maximize project communications and minimize project waste in order to afford the customer a competitive advantage. Agile was spawned from software development best practices, but can be successfully implemented on any type of product development project. There are 8 major methods currently implemented worldwide, and which method you should use depends on both the specific organization and your specific project. And pure Agile methods are not always the best fit for every project, because often organizations may continue to use Agile or a hybrid of Agile and traditional waterfall principles and practices, or a combination of different Agile methods to ensure project success. And this concludes our overview of Agile project management. So it's time for Justine to say,
see you next time.
And I say, until next time.